With the draft nearly here, San Francisco has some major holes they need to fill on their team, with probably the most glaring being their defensive line. This offseason, they cut basically their entire defensive line, so I think in this draft, they're going to go pretty heavy on that. There's also questions about what they're going to do at linebacker, safety, corner, and even their offensive line. So in this video, I want to do a complete 7-round mock draft to address these glaring weaknesses. And if you want to do your own mock draft, I'll go ahead and link this simulator down below, but starting out with San Francisco's first selection, the 11th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, I have them selecting defensive tackle Walter Nolen out of Ole Miss. Nolen offers prototypical size, coming in at 6'4", weighing 296 pounds, and at his pro day, he ran a blistering fast 40 time of 4.95 seconds. Nolen pairs his athleticism with being one of the most productive defensive tackles in this class. Last year in 2024, for instance, he was first team Associated Press All-American, first team All-SEC, and had 48 tackles, 14 tackles for loss, which led his team, 6.5 sacks, and 3 passes broken up. And when you turn on his film, he would be a perfect fit for San Francisco's wide 9 system that prioritizes a defensive lineman's ability to get up the field. He has an extremely explosive first step that allowed him to consistently beat offensive linemen at the SEC level. He also has the versatility a coach like Chris Kasarik loves. At his time at Ole Miss, for instance, you saw him playing all across the defensive line. And the way Ole Miss used him that I loved was using him on stunts. He has such crazy lateral agility for his size, which often makes it a nightmare for offensive linemen to handle. As far as specifics go, against the run, he's really quick to diagnose where the back is going, and even against double moves, he rarely gets pushed back and does a good job of splitting them. And when he's more in a defensive end position, he does a good job of setting the edge in the running game, really forcing the back to cut it back inside towards the teeth of his defense. Meanwhile, his pass rush shows a similar level of strength where he's routinely able to collapse the pocket with a bull rush move. He also has a pretty nice spin move and rip move that routinely shows up on film. I also love how powerful his hands are, and you can tell this wears on an offensive lineman throughout the game. He also does a pretty good job of getting his arms in the quarterback's throwing lane and batting down passes. Maybe my favorite part about Nolen though could be seen as a weakness. He's not completely refined yet, as he needs to continue to refine his pass rush moves and work on his counters, but that's a good thing to me, because if San Francisco can unlock his full potential, he could end up being the best defensive lineman in this entire class. And San Francisco would start filling the void left by DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead leaving. Now back to the big board, with their 43rd overall pick, I have them going edge piece with Landon Jackson out of Arkansas. Last year, Jackson was one of the most disruptive edge pieces in college football, routinely finding his way in the backfield thanks to his crazy mix of size and athleticism. At the combine, for instance, he came in at 6'6", weighing 264 pounds, and ran his 40-yard dash in 4.68 seconds. Like Nolen, he also pairs his athleticism with production. During his 2023 season, for instance, he had 13.5 tackles for loss and 6.5 sacks, and last year, he once again led his team with 6.5 sacks and tied for the team lead with 9.5 tackles for loss. A big reason Jackson has had so much success at the collegiate level is his rare mixture of length and power. You'll routinely see him driving offensive linemen into the backfield, both in the passing game and against the run. Diving a little bit more deeply into him against the run, he's excellent as an edge setter. I think San Francisco has really lost this over the last couple of years, a defensive end who doesn't allow a back to bounce outside on them. If you want that, pick up Jackson. He also not only has the speed to chase a back sideline to sideline, but he has a motor to do so. When you watch him throughout the game, he's never taking a rep off or really a second off. He's going as hard as he possibly can every single play. As far as against the pass, I've already alluded to how his power is a big factor, and that's because he does a great job of using his bull rush to walk offensive tackles into the quarterback's lap. He also does a pretty nice job of keeping his hands active throughout the rep. With that being said, he's not a complete player just yet, as he needs to continue to add tools to his pass rush moves, and I also think he needs to develop a more complete pass rush plan. But I do think if San Francisco selects him, he'll be in immediate competition for the defensive end spot opposite of Nick Bosa, and most likely would be starting day one. Now with San Francisco's 75th pick, I have them selecting the linebacker out of South Carolina, Demetrius Knight, to replace a player like Dre Greenlaw. When you look at Knight, he comes in at 6'2", weighing 235 pounds, and at the combine, he ran his 40-yard dash in 4.58 seconds, which was faster than Greenlaw's, and he also showed off his strength, putting up the bench press 22 times. And like Greenlaw, he showed impressive sideline-to-sideline ability across his collegiate career, and he did a great job of diagnosing exactly what the offense was trying to do with him and then reacting. Maybe my favorite part about his game though is just how aggressive he was. When Demetrius Knight was on the field, you could tell he was there in a similar way you could tell Dre Greenlaw was on the field. I also think he has the ability to come in and compete right away with a player like D. Winters to start next to Fred Warner and probably grab onto one of those starting linebacker jobs. Now with San Francisco's 100th overall pick, I have them selecting an offensive tackle they recently met with in Anthony Belton out of North Carolina State. He comes in at 6'6", weighing 336 pounds, and he could be a potential replacement for Trent Williams when he decides to retire, as for the last 3 years he's been playing left tackle. San Francisco could also decide to put him in competition for the left guard spot in a similar way they moved Pooney from the left tackle spot into the right guard spot last season. As far as what Belton shows on film, in the running game, he's an absolute bulldozer. You'll see him just opening up wide lanes for his running back, and this fits into San Francisco's offense perfectly. He also shows off pretty nimble feet with the ability to get to the second level. With those positives being noted, he does need to refine his pass rush sets, but for a third-round pick, he could end up starting for San Francisco. Back to San Francisco's draft board, with the 113th overall pick, I have them selecting the cornerback out of California, Nohl Williams. Williams comes in at 6 foot, right around 200 pounds, and at the combine, he ran his 40-yard dash in 4.5 seconds, and across his collegiate career, he snagged 14 interceptions. What's probably my favorite part about Williams' game is how he almost plays the cornerback position like a wide receiver. When the ball is in the air, he's going up and trying to snag it as his own, and he does a great job of identifying the wide receiver's route and then jumping it, specifically in zone coverage. Williams does need to continue to refine his run support, but immediately for San Francisco, I could see him coming in nickel packages, playing on the outside and having Lenore slide inside. Now with San Francisco's 138th pick, I have them adding speed to the safety position, picking up Jonas Sanker out of Virginia. He comes in at 6 foot, weighing 206 pounds, and at the combine, he ran his 40-yard dash in 4.48 seconds and his 10-yard split in 1.51. This level of athleticism allows Sanker to play man coverage in the slot against both wide receivers and tight ends in a similar way we saw Jimmy Ward used to in Saleh's defense. So Saleh could be looking at a player like Jonas Sanker and see his next Jimmy Ward. I also love how active he is against the run. You'll routinely see him coming up from his safety position in a hurry, and he hits with a pretty good pop. This isn't to say he's a perfect player, as sometimes his aggression can be used against him, but for Robert Saleh's defense, he could end up competing for the starting safety job. One of the things Robert Saleh wanted to do, according to numerous reports this offseason, was adding speed to the safety position, and he can do that by adding Sanker. Speaking of speed, with the 147th overall pick, I have San Francisco selecting Tai Felton, the wide receiver out of Maryland. At the combine, he came in at 6'1" and ran his 40-yard dash in 4.37 seconds and his 10-yard split in 1.51. And last year, he was one of the most productive college receivers, leading his team with 1,124 receiving yards and also setting a school record with 96 receptions. Not only is Felton effective deep down the field, but on third down, he does a great job of creating separation thanks to his athleticism. And in San Francisco's time-based system that relies on the quarterback's ability to play with anticipation, like Brock Purdy does, I could see Tai Felton being a breakout player, not just in his second year, but maybe as a rookie. Especially when you consider Brandon Ayuk might not start the season healthy, and Demarcus Robinson could be suspended due to his DUI. But now with San Francisco selecting with pick 160, I have them selecting a potential Jordan Mason replacement in Devin Neal. He also became the first player in Kansas history to rush for more than 1,000 yards in 3 seasons. And that happened all in a 3-year period. Overall pick, I have them going back to the defensive line, this time selecting the defensive tackle Tim Smith out of Alabama. He comes in at 6'4", weighing 304 pounds, and has a pretty impressive first step for a player of his size, and he does a nice job of clogging run lanes and setting the edge in the running game. He does need to improve as a pass rusher as his technique isn't the most refined, but I think he's a pretty solid pickup here. With San Francisco's second to last pick, I have them picking up another edge piece in Tyler Batty. He comes in at 6'6", weighing 271 pounds, and at the combine he ran his 40-yard dash in 4.78 seconds. Batty is an extremely high motor player that does an excellent job in the running game and should see snaps there early on in his career, and he also has the ability to continue to develop as a pass rusher as he needs to continue to refine his technique. I also love how quickly he identifies plays, but he will be 25 when he's a rookie, so that's something San Francisco needs to consider, but with their second to last pick, to get a rotational edge piece is a steal in my opinion. Now with San Francisco's final pick, I have them selecting the defensive tackle Cam Horsley out of Boston College. He comes in at 6'3", weighing 312 pounds, and has nice athleticism to mix with that size. He also does a good job of using his length against the run, stacking up blockers at the line of scrimmage and then shedding their blocks. I also love his bull rush move against the pass as he routinely disrupts the pocket. He does need to continue to work on his hand usage and counters, but he does have a shot to make San Francisco's 53-man roster as a rookie. Overall though, these are just my picks for San Francisco headed into this 2025 NFL draft, and I want to hear your thoughts down below of my picks and who you have them selecting with the 11th overall pick. It would also mean a ton to me if you could like and subscribe, and as always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.